Happy Tuesday, everybody. Let's do an end of day update on stock market. Nasdaq 100 came to the neutral zone this morning. You can see there was a dump and then it just bounced to sell zone. So you can see it came to like from the sell zone yesterday. It was a perfect sell here. Whoever bought here to short, nice sell here. And you can see this indicator was still predicting it was a nice sell zone, and so came from sell to the neutral zone, and then it bounced again to the sell zone, and now it's again in the sell zone here, and a bounce from neutral zone, this white line to the sell zone upon 1.24%. S&P 500 also you can see came from neutral zone to the sell zone, and it's bouncing here, right? And now again going towards the sell zone. By the way, I created a live channel, so I'm showing Nasdaq 100. Hopefully, it will help you. You can just go and see live market. I created an indicator, so that should hopefully help you with trading. Tesla came closer to buy zone, all right, in the morning around 10:30 a.m. Trust buy zone came, and then it just tagged along buy zone throughout the day, and then at the end of the day had a little bit of pump, all right. So this is 200 SMA 230.86. Now there's another gap here around 224. So if I go to daily chart, let me hide this indicator. You can see here, so there's 200 SMA here. Let me add a few indicators here. This one and then RSI. All right. So you can see Tesla came very close to 200 SMA. This dark blue line, this is 200 SMA. This is where I want to buy. It's a bit higher. No, it's right here right now, 230.86. So let's see if it falls again tomorrow. This is where I'll be buying. Now there is a gap here, which is around 224. So it is quite possible they might put it below 200 SMA. So from here, 200 SMA is around 1 point, let's say 1.72% away, and then the gap fill is around 4.4% away. So it is quite possible they can dump it. For Tesla, going 4%, 5% in a day is not a big deal. Today it went almost 3.5%, then bounce. So it's quite possible it can come all the way down, and that's where this trend line is also, this bottom trend line. If it comes all the way here, maybe fill this gap and then close above trend line, that will be a really good entry. And I just marked with pink this 200 SMA. So keeping an eye on Tesla, because other than that, all of the tech stocks are near all-time highs. So I'm only interested in Tesla right now. Uh, so we'll see how it goes. All right. And let's go to S&P 500. Let's go to 1 hour chart and let's try to mark. Did we get any gaps or not? So let me hide this indicator and try to do our usual thing. And you can see it gap down this morning, S&P 500, and then it filled this gap. All right. So that was an indication when it gap down that the gap will be filled. So that was a good trade, whoever took it. And you can, if I zoom in here, there is slight gap here. If I zoom in here, maybe more, you can see it's very little gap here on this Monday trade. So looking for that to come around 428 to fill this gap. Now this gap is more visible on triple Qs, which is Nasdaq ETF. You can see this also gap down. Went to fill this gap and then just kind of closed flat. 0.2%, not a big deal, but this is bigger gap here. Okay, so this gap will be filled. Now there's a gap on the top, there's a gap at the bottom. So it looks like they might want to go fill this gap first and then come back down. Uh, in the morning they showed like they want to go down first and then come higher. So right now it's right in the middle. So let's see. They might want to fill this gap first and then come down. So keep an eye on that. Let's go and see other. Let's quickly scan and see if other stocks had any gaps. So Dow Jones, okay, you can see the gap down. So what I usually do is I mark top gaps with the yellow line. So here you go, top gaps here, IWM also had a gap down. So we're gonna mark this also with a yellow gap. All right, so these gaps do get filled, but for now, we're just gonna do a marking. And let's quickly go through big stocks and let's see if there are any gaps we need to mark. So Apple had a gap down. At the end of the last hour candle, they filled the gap. So we can delete this. Now there's a gap at the down as well. 181.28, and there's also a gap all the way here on 191. So let's see which one gets filled. But first, Netflix also had a gap down and then filled this gap. So we can delete this. Microsoft had no gaps, Google had no gaps, Meta had no gaps, Amazon had no gaps, Snowflakes had gap, Nvidia massive bounce, very very overbought short term. So a cool down is expected. AMD also no gaps, but a gap on the downside. Let's look at Newmont Mine, biggest gold miner, gap down. All right, so massive gap down and broke the trend. So I'm gonna mark this gap as a yellow. So it went a bit lower here. GDX on the trend line, right on the trend line. And let's quickly look at sectors. XLK had a gap down and filled this gap. XLE energy sector, flat. XLV, nothing here. Utility sector, gap down. So we can mark this gap here. This is the gap up here. Um, and XLI, no gaps. XLRE, real estate sector had a gap fill, so we can skip it. And financials also had a gap down. So you can mark top gaps as yellow here as well. KRE, Regional Bank ETF also had a gap down. So you can mark this as well with the yellow sign. Here you go. Shopify, no gaps, only gaps to the downside. And let's quickly see Boeing because Boeing is down quite a lot. No gaps here. Okay, Nike also had no gaps. And last thing I'm going to check is quickly this banks. Royal Bank had no gap. BMO had a gap. TD had a massive gap with dividends in. CM had a gap down. National Bank had a gap down as well. All right. And then the last one is CNQ, which is the biggest oil miner in Canada, and that's it. Okay. So now we marked all the gaps. So let's quickly review daily chart and see how things are lining up. We can add these moving averages here, and you can see here S&P 500 now close above this green line 2 days in a row, which is good news for the bulls. But you can see this trend line, white trend line. It could be doing a back test here. That's quite possible. So if I hide this indicator here, you can see it can go for a back test of this trend line. So that will be a new all-time high. But if that happens, there's going to be divergence on RSI. So what that means is price is going making higher high, RSI is making lower high. So we have got to be careful. So just be aware of that. Now I do expect a little bit of cool down. I hope my preference will be a rejection here. So you can see this whole area, like how this was support. Let me mark this. I don't know if you can see it here, but you can see here this whole area, right, where we are right now. There's a lot of confluence of, if I draw a red line here, right near resistance, you can see here, a lot of, even if I go to daily chart, see here, like resistance gone down, then try to break out, then again came down, again on resistance, okay? Are we gonna go down from here to fill this gap? Or are we gonna go break this resistance? That's $1 million question, so we don't know. All right, so we are near resistance, so we like to take profits out, like to short near resistance, and then buy near support. All right, so we are not near support. Support is on this gap fill around 468, and also there's a, I think some CPI release coming on Thursday, if I'm not wrong. So that could be, so maybe tomorrow we're just gonna be flat, and then after that date, I mean that release data, we're gonna have a big move. So either we're gonna go down or we're gonna break this resistance and go to new all-time high. So beware of this. Triple Qs, Nasdaq. Again, I said before, there's a gap here and gap down. So looks like they want to fill this gap. Okay, that's quite possible. Or it's near resistance. This whole area is resistance. They might uh, now sell from here. Let's bring moving averages and see how things are. So it is also closing above this 10 moving average. It's above all moving averages. That's good news. But this could be still not able to break this previous high. So is it going to be a lower high before we break down? Is it going to be something like this here? You can see lower high breakdown, lower high breakdown. Is this turning out to be a lower high? So just be very careful, guys. You can see this pattern on Nasdaq. You can see this 2023, July 23 also lower high breakdown, lower high breakdown, and here lower high breakdown. So just be careful if you want to break this pattern. We want to see a new high. If it not, then it's gonna break down, guys. S&P 500, same thing here, right? Lower high breakdown is gonna be another lower high before we break down. Here also lower high. I don't know. I'm just gotta be careful here. Let's see how this thing plays out. So we'll know very soon in a couple of days. All right, Dow Jones. This gap is still there, so uh, still not able to close off this green line, which is 10 moving average. So let's see if it can go above that. There's a gap here around 376. Maybe they want to fill that. That looks like that's what they want to do, fill this gap and then go down. We'll see. IWM was down 0.89%, a couple of gaps now. There was also a gap left this morning that was filled, but maybe they want to go fill a couple of these gaps. This definitely looks like a lower high before we break down. You can see how it happened here, lower high breakdown. So yeah, this looks quite possible. All right, so Tesla already covered. Looking for if this 200 SMA, this dark blue line, this doesn't hold, it's going to go down here to fill this gap. That's going to be a best entry around 224. All right, crude oil. Trying to go above, but struggling, just chopping around between resistance here, this area around 77, support here around $68. So it's just in the middle of resistance and support. Not able to go above any of the moving averages, so still struggling. So until it breaks one way or another, look, keep an eye on this yellow line, which is 50 EMA, daily EMA. It really needs to close above that to be bullish again, crude oil. Gold behaving exactly like how I was thinking. Looking for a little bit more downside on this $2,000 and then a pump higher. Silver also, I want to see silver on this trend line. This is a support trend line, so let's see if it can come down. Maybe they will do it during CPI, so it can even go as low as here, 22 bucks. That's gonna be a good area to buy silver. Natural gas, massive pump. This is a way you break out. Massive, I think 7, 8, 9% was up at one point. It's going uh, it's going against what I was thinking. That's okay. But the good news is it closed above this red line. It has to close above this red line 2 days in a row. So tomorrow is going to be real test. If natural gas holds here and close above that, that's very bullish. Got rejected on this light blue line, which is 200 EMA. So let's see. It's between 50 SMA and 200 EMA. And if it can close above that, that's very bullish. Even if it stays above this red line, 50 SMA, tomorrow end of day, that's also pretty good, okay? But if it rejects here and goes below red line, you gotta be careful. Dollar, all right, so it's near resistance, slight resistance. So let's see if dollar can break out, that's gonna be good. But if it rejects here, it's gonna come back to support. It's right in the middle. Again, I think tomorrow is gonna be just like a neutral day, and stock market is waiting for CPI data before they can move next. Bitcoin, massive move yesterday. Today also there was a fake news on. They were saying the ETF is approved, and then somebody said it's a fake news. So we'll see. Bitcoin has some divergence. You can see lower highs, lower highs. It's making higher high here price. So just be a bit careful. It could be sell the news as soon as, even if it is approved Bitcoin ETF, they might sell it down. So just be mindful of that. It could be sell the news. So if you're already in profits, I strongly recommend to take all the profits. Same thing on Ethereum, divergence on RSI. And if I go to Bitcoin futures here, um, you can see here, if you go to 1 hour chart, there are no gaps, which is good news. But if I go to daily chart, there's a big gap here around 13 and 420. So just be mindful of that. Uh, we could get rejected here, all right? And there's still divergence on RSI. Ethereum, the gap is way down here. So just be aware of that. All right, let's keep moving. Toronto Stock Exchange, a little bit down. Again, if it comes to this, it's still holding the support green line, 10 moving average. If it comes down to this green area, that's a buy area. Hang Seng Index, it filled the gap. So I showed this morning. So it was in a downtrend. This trend line here broke out, now back testing, and it filled the gap. So that's what it was expected. Go to 1 hour chart. This gap here, you can see here, this gap up, this day here on 13th of December, gap up. So it filled this gap very nicely. So right on back testing this. So let's see if maybe we can do it like this. something like this. All right, it's a nice back test. So also higher momentum. If it makes a new low, it's still gonna be divergent low. So let's see if it's gonna pick up from here. That's gonna be best case. Bond market is just consolidating, looking for a little bit more lower and then bounce. Copper, massive rejection candle. So this thing became resistance now, which was acting as a support for a while, this whole area. So what we can do is make it red, which I did now. So it really needs to close above this red line, which is 50 daily SMA line to be bullish again. Um, it is still a high low. You can see compared to this low, still a high low. It really needs to hold here and bounce. If it breaks this, go below this, then we're going to form a new downtrend. Palladium also just back testing, broke out back testing. Soybeans consolidating, still divergence, I think. You can see here a little divergence, new low with divergence. So just wait for this trend line break, this white line, and before you get bullish. Wheat up 2%, just like coming down on support and bouncing. So holding this white 50 daily SMA line, which is good news so far. Corn also trying to hold, made a new low, 52 weeks low. And again, that's happening on a divergence. You can see RSI is making higher high, price is making lower high. So let's see if it can bounce from here. Sugar, looking for rejection and coming back to this buy area. And if I want to see like a new low with some divergence to be bullish again, so that's what my expectation is. Apple, Apple is, you can see it bounced from 200 SMA, but it bounced with a gap. So right now it's in the middle, okay? So it can still go a little bit higher. There's resistance. There are multiple moving averages coming. It's going to be very hard for Apple to close 188. It can still go higher and then get rejected, or it can reject right now and come back to support to fill this gap around 188. If it comes back to fill this gap, that's what I will be buying. Apple 188, sorry, 181. Netflix also just consolidating in the middle. Um, I don't know, no direction right now, near resistance, this red line. So we'll see. Maybe it's also waiting for CPI data. Microsoft trying to break out, but again created a gap up. So if it comes back to fill this gap, that will be a good area to buy. Google also good candle, massive candle here. But again, this gap is also left since yesterday. So let's see, it's near resistance. So you take profits near resistance. So if you're in profit, look to take profits on Google. Meta also trying to fill this gap around 362. Amazon also high. Again, there's a gap here. So these guys are going higher on a gap. Snowflake's also going higher on a gap. Nvidia made a new high. Looks like an indecision candle. So let's see. Still some divergence, new high. You can see daily chart with the RSI making a lower high. Still slight divergence. If it keeps going higher, then it's gonna be done. It's gonna be like this, but still right now there's divergence. Looks like a indecision candle like here you can see. So maybe it's gonna come back to fill this gap. Let's see. Let's see. We don't know yet. AMD also trying to make a new high with a gap down. Eventually these gaps will be filled. So everything, all tech is very, very overbought. So keep that in mind. I think you should look to buy other sectors. Tech is very, very overbought, in my opinion. Newmont Mine broke this trend line. Maybe there's some news. I don't know what happened here. I don't know what happened. So there's some news broke below all moving averages. Very, very bearish. Looks like it wants to come down all the way here to fill this gap around 36.71. Gold miners are on this support. Nice support. If this is where you want to buy, but if this thing breaks, next gap here around 26.54 is the target, and the last target is 27.41. Sector wise, XLK also gap up since 2 days ago. Um, Found some resistance on this 10 moving average. So this is tech sector. If it gets rejected here, it will come down to fill this gap. This can be again lower high before we go lower. Energy sector, massive red candle today. Uh, there's a gap here that will be filled. I don't know when. There was a gap here yesterday. It was filled. This gap for this candle. So let's see. I'm neutral on this. It all depends on what oil will do. Healthcare. This could be inverse candle. New high. Still not a divergent high, but very, very overbought. Healthcare, be careful. You should be looking to take profits here. Utility sector. Again, just consolidating above this 200 SMA line, light dark blue line. So this is a trend line, so wait to buy on the dips. Industrial sector, again, this gap is not filled. It could be lower high before we go down. Real estate sector, again, struggling to go above this 10 moving average. Again, this can be lower high before we go down. So be a bit careful here, all right? Financial sector, new highs were made yesterday on divergent high. So let's see, today went gap down. Um, Still pretty bullish above all moving averages until it falls below any of the moving average. We have to stay bullish, but this is a time you should be looking to take profits, and we're getting early indication to lock into your profits. KRE sector, regional ETF, holding support on this white line, which is 20 moving average. Uh, as long as this thing holds, it's good. If it breaks, you should exit. Shopify, pretty bullish, new high, equal high, but again, still divergence on Shopify. Okay, so all these big tech companies are going higher on divergence. Time to be a bit careful. Boeing below 50 SMA. Next support is here, 213, and then there's a gap fill also here. Now from here, if are we gonna go all the way down 12%? I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. There are a couple of gaps here, so those will be filled. So if you can hold long term, remember this 10% gap here, eventually that will be filled. Can you wait and hold for that long? It's up to you. All right. Okay. Is there anything else interesting? UNH holding biggest healthcare sector, holding this 50 daily SMA. Pfizer also holding this 50 daily SMA. Everything is trying. Alibaba trying to make a new low, but Hang Seng Index is holding. So it all depends on the index, what it's going to do. Baidu also above all moving averages, just holding nicely here for now. Okay, guys, that's about it for today. And let's see if there's anybody with questions.